Today, we're going to talk about Joe Biden's age and his re-election run. And I interviewed Chasten about his response to Fox's attacks on him and Pete, whether he agrees with Pete's decision to appear on that network, and his new book, I Have Something to Tell You, and what it meant to release it in the middle of so many attacks against the LGBT community. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. All right, I'm entering the fray here. Let's talk about Joe Biden's age. So Biden is 80 right now. He would take office if he gets reelected again at 82. He would leave office at 86, not young. And two things here. First, I think it's okay to acknowledge that, because if we don't, then it looks like we're burying our heads in the sand, and it's not going to help anything if we're hurting our own credibility here. So that's the first thing. But second, I feel like the reason we feel like we can't talk about it is because we know it'll get weaponized by the right. And so if we say anything in good faith, then the right can then use that, and it'll be the right attacking Joe Biden and us attacking Joe Biden. And so instead, we all just have to keep quiet and pretend that we can't talk about it. But I don't think that's the case, so let's talk about it. So my take is this. Is Joe Biden old? Yes. Is he slower than he was when he was Obama's vice president? Yes. But has that impacted the way that he actually does his job? And this is the part where we don't have to pontificate here. All we have to do is look right in front of us, because he is literally president right now. And I would ask, what part of the job hasn't he been able to do by virtue of his age? And I mean that seriously. We've got more than 2 years of evidence to look at here. He's presided over the addition of 12.5 million jobs, 12.7 million jobs. That's the most jobs in a single term of any president ever. And it's only been a little over 2 years. We're in a manufacturing renaissance right now. 800,000 manufacturing jobs have been added. We're in a clean energy revolution, all thanks to the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. We've had the quickest recovery from a recession in modern U.S. history. He actually got an infrastructure bill passed. He actually got a gun safety bill passed. He got climate funding passed. He got the government to negotiate lower drug prices, refunded the IRS to catch tax cheats. We got veteran health care. He forgave student loan debt, which, of course, Republicans are fighting in the courts. He's removing cannabis from the list of Schedule I drugs. So any way you cut this, if you're looking at this from an economic perspective, a jobs perspective, or a progressive perspective, he is getting it done. Can he dunk a basketball? No, but we're not asking him to. His job is to govern, and he is doing it. In fact, just a few days ago, MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle asked Biden about his age point blank, and this is what he said.
And it is fair to say that there's not a Fortune 500 company in the world looking to hire a CEO in his 80s. So why would an 82-year-old Joe Biden be the right person for the most important job in the world?
Because I've acquired a hell of a lot of wisdom. I know more than the vast majority of people. I'm more experienced than anybody's ever run for the office. And I think I've proven myself to be honorable as well as also effective.
And that's a good answer. And he is effective for literally all of the reasons that I spoke about before. We're sitting here pretending that the jury's out on whether he'll be able to do the job, as if he hasn't already done it, and done it more effectively than most other presidents in American history. Certainly more than any other president in my lifetime. And look, I'm all for criticizing someone when it's warranted, but the idea that Biden endures these daily barrages of attacks against his mental acuity is, I think, really sad, because he is sharp. Does he stumble on his words? Of course he does. But guess what? If I didn't edit my own videos and my own podcast, I would stumble all over the place too. It doesn't mean I'm senile. But every time Biden stumbles over a syllable, Republicans play it off like he doesn't know what year it is. And let's not pretend that tactic doesn't work, because it absolutely does. But it's always funny to notice the moments when those attacks actually go away, because it is whenever Biden does some major event where everyone can actually watch, like the State of the Union or that speech in Ireland just a few weeks back. When people watch Biden with their own eyes and listen to him with their own ears outside of the desperate right-wing ecosystem, it's those moments when it suddenly becomes really difficult for Republicans to claim that Biden can't remember his own name. I mean, hell, during the State of the Union, he literally got Republicans to applaud for his agenda of not cutting earned benefits on the fly.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means If Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be stopped. All right.
So if Biden is senile, I really don't know what it says about those Republicans who he showed up. And not that my word really counts for anything, but I literally sat down with the guy for a half hour. Do you know how freaked out I would have been if the president of the United States wasn't sharp? Here's a quick snippet from that interview.
I ran for president, really and truly, and even my supporters were not critical of, but thought the reasons I laid out why I was running, maybe they weren't such a good idea. I said I was running for 3 reasons from the very beginning. 1, to restore the soul of America, this idea of decency, honor, treating people with respect, literally treating people with respect. And 2nd reason, rebuild the backbone of the country, which is the middle class, working class folks. This trickle-down theory of economic growth, excuse me, has left an awful lot of Americans out. And I've never seen a time when the middle class is doing well that the wealthy don't do very well and the poor have a way up. And so that's why I focused on how to change the circumstances and opportunities for working class and middle class people. And the 3rd reason was, which I got a lot of criticism for, was saying I had to unite the country. We can't be a divided country. We can't be sustained and do the things that have to be done if we remain divided based on ethnicity, based on politics. It can't work. And so they're the 3 things. I hope my legacy is that I was able to restore some decency and honor to the office. I was able to bring the middle class back to a place where they had real opportunity, given an even chance to succeed. And I was able to reconstruct our alliances, which had been frayed so badly internationally, and that I was able to bring people together, bring the politics of America together. And I think we're making slow progress on some of these things, but I think that's where we're moving. I hope my legacy is that I restored the soul of this country. I was able to give the middle class, and we were able to build the economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down, and that we're able to unify the country again.
So yeah, put that answer against the Trump response any day of the week, and then we can have a conversation about whose brain is actually mush. And here's the reason that I think is probably the most important, so sorry to bury the lead on this one, but this election is going to be a choice. Biden himself says, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative, which I think is a tacit acknowledgement that he is not perfect, but that elections aren't referendums on a single person, they are a choice between 2. And at least at the moment, that choice is likely going to be Biden and Trump. So the idea that Joe Biden, who is old and sometimes stumbles on his words, is not better than a criminal defendant who is right now on trial in a rape case, who oversaw the worst jobs performance of any president in modern American history, who destroyed our international standing, who coddled the world's dictators and autocrats, who emboldened a bunch of neo-Nazis, who presided over 20% of the world's COVID cases and deaths, despite the fact that we've got only 5% of the world's population, whose only major legislative achievement was giving himself a tax cut. The idea that that guy is preferable to Biden because Biden is old is a joke. Donald Trump is so unqualified and incompetent and extreme that Biden could be in a coma and he would be less dangerous than another Trump term. And we don't have to guess there because we've had 4 years of Trump, so we already know. And finally, let's just think about this practically for a moment. First of all, you cannot doubt the advantage of the incumbency. Only 10 incumbent presidents have ever lost re-election, and only 5 in the last 100 years, with Trump being one of them. Like before Trump, it was George H.W. Bush in 1992. The power of the incumbency is a monumental advantage. And the idea that Biden, with all of his achievements under his belt, would just discard that is kind of absurd. And then there's the electability argument. And it's hard to suggest that Biden couldn't beat Trump when the guy quite literally beat Trump. And think about the environment that we'd be operating in now relative to 2020. Biden has the most accomplished record of any president probably since FDR. He has the most jobs ever added. He has a thriving economy, blah, blah, blah. And Trump's not only a loser in 2020, but all of his America First swing state candidates for governor and secretary of state literally all lost in midterms. And he is a criminal defendant, likely to be indicted in 4, 5, 6 cases by the time the election rolls around. So the idea that Joe Biden is not in a better position and that Donald Trump is not in a worse position is to ignore the reality that we're living in. All of which is to say, we shouldn't be afraid to have this conversation because we should be proud of what the left has accomplished. Have we gotten everything? Of course not. Like, do I wish that Biden didn't approve the Willow Project? Do I wish that he moved faster on student loan cancellation? Do I wish that he used the bully pulpit of the presidency to call out Republican corruption and the corruption on the Supreme Court? Of course I do. But the idea that those things supersede everything that we did get is a little ridiculous. Like, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good here. And by all measures, where Democrats are in power in this country, where we've protected abortion rights and passed gun safety reforms and bolstered union protections and raised wages and combated climate change, those are records that we should be perfectly willing to run on. Here's a preview of my interview with Chasten Buttigieg. Tucker Carlson's been fired from Fox News. Tucker mocked your husband, Pete, for taking paternity leave and also made some off-color remarks about breastfeeding. What was the reaction that you guys had at home to Tucker using, the biggest platform on the biggest conservative media outlet in the biggest primetime slot to say those things? And also, how did that impact you guys at home?
Well, I mean, those things certainly are disappointing, and not just because they're directed at our family, but because they're directed at an entire community. What really bothers me is when people use that type of bigotry and that type of hate to go after already vulnerable people. I'm a grown-up. I've learned to armor myself after years of being an out gay man, but it's especially young people that I worry about. And folks on that network who use their platform to spread hate, but not only hate, misinformation, fear, certainly do a disservice to the country, do a disservice to journalism itself, and also to the ideas of freedom. The same ideas that they pride themselves on espousing, by the way. Sure, very, very slim, narrow ideas of what that looks like for everybody. So, I get it. We're a high-profile couple. We're a high-profile LGBTQ couple, and so you can expect that kind of nonsense to come from places like that. But I guess we don't have to worry about it coming from him anymore.
That's fair enough. To watch my full interview with Chasten Buttigieg, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also find the link on this screen for my audio podcast, my Spanish channel to help reach Spanish-speaking audiences, and of course my regular YouTube channel. So please subscribe all around. Thanks so much.